They said stress is essentially the result of pressure, right? This is the mathematical equation. It is the result of pressure minus your capability to manage all of the pressure. So if you do not feel capable of keeping up with the pressure or managing the pressure or defeating the pressure, you're going to be stressed. And then it's going to fall in one of these four buckets. And you have to understand which bucket you're in so that you can then do something about the bucket to lower the pressure, to increase your internal capability to defeat the stress. And this is how do I get from essentially from red to orange to yellow to green. And it can't just be by quitting everything. This is something I used to do when I was younger. My wife would recognize when I was stressed out because I used to keep running lists of all the things that I had to do. I had one at work and I had one at home, and I would essentially transcribe them day for day. So at work was all the things that I had to get done. At the end of the day, I would update the list and prepare it for the next day. Then I would go home, update that list based off what happened at work that day, and that list at home included not just work stuff, but also the stuff in my personal life. This is one of my areas that I struggled at because at work, I did not have my personal things on that list. But at home, I had my personal things plus my work things. Do you see the problem? That's a dilemma. I would very often lose track of my personal things because my professional things was always the priority. And I'm very, very fortunate that my wife understood that most of the time, but there were times that I would let her down because I would lose sight of the bubble, right? Which is one of the things that I learned from hanging out with submarine folks is don't lose sight of the bubble. And don't lose sight of what's actually going on in the world and what really matters in the operational focus of the mission, which in my life, the mission needs to be keeping my marriage intact, keeping my family intact, and then accomplishing the mission. But unfortunately, for a lot of years, mission was first, and then it was family, and then it was marriage, and that was a challenge. Okay, now, I want to get into laying out these four different areas of stress because if I had learned this earlier in life, I don't know that it would have changed a lot. I'll be blunt. I think about this, but I think it definitely, as I learned it, listening to him speak, it just made so much sense. It offered clarity. It offered clarity. At a minimum, it offered clarity, and I was much better to say, wow, that just makes so much sense. And it gives me peace recognizing all these different buckets and how they fit into stress. Because I struggle with some of my challenges now. Right? I struggle hearing that I have a hard time managing stress. That sucks. I don't want to think that way. I don't want to hear that truth. I don't want to have to admit that. That was one of the hardest things that I had to deal with when it was time for me to retire from the military, was to learn that unfortunately things had finally pushed me so far into the red. I mean, I was in purple. The red, nothing. I was in purple. There is no purple. I made it up. But I was in the purple because of how bad things had gotten in that organization. And unfortunately, you just never come all the way back to, I don't believe I can ever get back to the green. I just don't know that it can ever happen. And that's hard to deal with. That's hard for me to deal with. That's my reality. But when I heard the things they were talking about, I just thought, wow, I want to share these with the students because this is powerful to at least understand what you could do as you're operating under stress and what area of stress are you in, not just the color coding, but also which factor are you operating in. And there's going to be fear, there's going to be panic, there's going to be anxiety, fear, panic, and anxiety. And the fourth one right now, I'm losing it, but I'll cover it in a minute. But the first one I want to cover is fear. Fear, if you are afraid, panic is the other one. So fear, anxiety, panic, and there's one more, I'll get to it. But if you are fearful, if you are afraid, it means that there is something going on that you do not believe that you have the capability to accomplish. Okay? If you are afraid, it means there is something, some challenge that you do not know that you have the ability to accomplish it. And the antidote to that, to fear, is you must take action. If you're afraid, if there's an animal that I think is going to attack me, right? And I'm afraid because I don't think I can defend myself against this animal, then I must run. Or I must attack and fight, right? Fight or flight, right? It's fight or flight. If I am afraid that I cannot accomplish the things that we need to accomplish to satisfy this inspection that's coming up, or to do good on a test that's coming up, then I must take action. I must prepare. I must get mentorship. I must get a strategy in place to help myself better understand the problem. You must take action if the stress that you are dealing with is fear. And fear can be paralyzing for some people because they struggle coming up with a plan under that pressure. But the plan is what they have to have. If you do not have the ability to take an action, unfortunately, you're probably going to always run. That's where you're going to deflect and you're going to run. And that is, unfortunately, not always the best course of action when you're operating in fear, right?